This is our 4th annual video game spending review episode.
Isn't that crazy?
It is. It's wild.
I every time I was like, nah, it's got to be like 3rd, right? We've done it a couple times, but it just, I don't know. I don't know what it is about the 4th, but I was just like, okay, this is real now.
Because next year's the 5th. And 5 is half of 10.
5 golden rings.
That's right. So here we go.
Welcome to Pride and Accomplishment. My name is Jason.
And I'm Chris. This is episode 118.
If you don't know what this episode is, this is a really cool tradition of Chris and I's. I don't remember how this got started, but I think we wanted an idea for a show at the top of the year, and we were like, hey, why don't we just add up what we spent this year and talk about it? And it's just become a thing.
It has become a thing, and it's actually something that I look forward to and think about throughout the year as I'm spending money on games, because I'm like, oh no, I'm going to have to account for this in the annual episode. And I think in general, it's actually been pretty healthy.
Yeah, it's been a pretty positive influence on my habits, and it's done some work stifling some maybe impulse purchases, because I know I'm going to have to talk about them at the end of the year.
Yep. This was also, I think, maybe not this episode, but the existence of this episode really reinforced the 2-hour rule, which is to don't buy a game unless you're going to play it within 2 hours of buying it. And I think that we are now kind of in like the final form of the 2-hour rule for us. Like, we're very good at applying it to ourselves. And I actually cannot think of a case where I kind of didn't buy something because of the 2-hour rule and then later did buy it and was regretful. Like, I can't think of a case where it's like, oh yeah, it was cheaper before and I didn't buy it because of the 2-hour rule. Like, I think it's always worked out in my favor to wait until I'm going to play something to buy it.
Yeah, it may cost you more money for that individual game in that specific instance because you've waited, but overall the rule saves you money.
Oh, absolutely. Because you don't end up buying something being like, oh yeah, someday I'm going to play that one game. And then you just never do. And then that's just wasted money, right? If you buy a game and don't play it, then it's a waste.
I think you broke this rule a little bit this year. We'll talk about some of the specifics. I mean, we pre-order a few things every now and then. We're not perfect. We pre-order a couple things. And technically pre-order violates that rule. But I don't think we're very aware, both of us. We talk about it all the time. We're very aware, and we're almost accountable to each other when we break the 4-hour rule, which I think is really cool.
It's a 2-hour rule.
Or 2-hour rule. Yeah. I mean, whatever. it's valuable. Chris, do you remember a conversation we had just last episode about whether I was going to buy something on PS5 or PC?
Yes. What game was that?
I think it was Star Wars Outlaws.
Yes. Outlaws. Yep.
But that was a very fortuitous conversation, because we had noticed something today, putting together the numbers, that our gaming landscape, it's always been, you've always been the bigger console gamer between us, but like this year really put into perspective that the landscape for us is dramatically changing.
Absolutely. Yeah. This year I was doing all the math and I was like, wow, my PC spending is lower than expected. And then I was doing the math on my console, like PS5 and Switch games and stuff. And I was like, oh, I bought a lot of games on console this year. So that, I think, led to the reorganization that you're about to talk about and kind of the format of what we're going through our lists this year.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we do a lot of homework for this episode. We run through all of our, we download our credit card bill statements for the last year, which we find some interesting stuff that's not related to gaming, but whatever, like we review it all. But we pick out all of the gaming stuff. We log into all of the accounts that we know about. We kind of pull all of our transaction history. And we kind of had a mode for this the past couple of years, and we were kind of filling out the same document that we always fill out. But when we got to the end, with Chris is kind of saying, hey, I really want to highlight my console games more. I want to show like that there's you kind of have to add them together this year to really get to really see like the full picture of the gaming history this year. And so we did a lot of work, actually. I think we spent a lot of time on reorganizing how we're going to present this today. Typically in the past, we kind of have presented PC games and then everything else. Mm-hmm. And what we did this year is we split it kind of much more, I would call reasonably. I really like how this turned out, where we essentially have all games/software, like whatever we're kind of calling it, like all of the game purchases and then all of the hardware purchases. So if that's a really easy distinction to make.
This reminds me of when you have like a company that restructures itself, like they're like, oh, now we're going to have, from 4 business units, we're going to have 2 divisions or whatever. And then they have to like say, oh, in our next quarterly report or our next annual report, we will report numbers in this way. This just reminds me of that. I don't know why, but like it's just changing our accounting practices. It doesn't change any of the numbers from previous years. It's just how we organize the list is a little bit different than usual. And I think it makes more sense to your point, right? We're talking about games specifically, and then we're talking about the things we use to play games and then putting those together. Should we get started?
Let's do it.
The first category that we have by tradition is Steam, which historically was the place that I would go to buy most of my games. And looking at our list this year, well, especially your list, it's pretty slim pickings.
I would like to note that you're going to find out in a second that my Steam total is slightly higher than your Steam total, but you have
6 times
the number of lines.
Yes. I bought a lot of cheap things, and you bought a couple of expensive things.
Yeah, which I just think is incredible on the way how it's turned out. So I'm going to do mine really fast, and then we're going to sit here and talk about a couple of yours. Mine are obvious. We've talked about them before. I bought Baldur's Gate on Steam this year. It was not available on Humble. I would have normally bought that on Humble with the discount, but it wasn't available on Humble at all. So I bought it on Steam. And then I've talked about this game, Wayfinder. Wayfinder came out on Steam. I bought the highest level Founders Pack. I really regret not being a founder for Warframe. So, I said, whether this, I'm going to get it on the ground floor on this one. So my Steam total for the year is $224 for just those 2 games. And I'm good with it. I'm good with it. But, yours is lower and you have a lot more games to talk about.
Yes, I do. A couple of things out the bat. One I wanted to highlight, and I do this every year, is my spending on Dota 2. So in the past, my spending on Dota 2 has been about $200 because I would buy the International Battle Pass and I would buy all the like extra levels for the Battle Pass and all of that stuff. And I think that was like very consistent over the past 3 years, was about $200 for Dota. And this year, my grand total for Dota 2 is $34.
Yeah, that's it. It shows kind of in the overall spend on Steam compared to previous years. It's almost entirely coming from this category, it seems.
Right. So this year I only bought the Battle Pass because they changed the format of the Battle Pass to be more player centric, I guess I'll say. And that was something, I think we talked about it a little bit. I liked it. I paid a lot more attention to the actual games themselves, and they didn't really have a super grindy Battle Pass. I played a few games, but like I didn't, and I did get into playing Dota during that event, but there was no reason to buy 100 levels of the Battle Pass or whatever. They didn't really do that. So I spent $30 on the Battle Pass and then $4 on 1 month of Dota Plus, which is their kind of like analytics package that you can pay for to get like hints and like matchup information like in client. It's just really a convenience thing. And whenever I'm seriously playing Dota, I do tend to subscribe to Dota Plus. The most expensive thing on my Steam list was Baldur's Gate 3. Kind of same as you, but it wasn't the most expensive on your list. But that was the most expensive individual Steam game. Yeah,
and I mean, neither of us have beat it yet. I think that's kind of one of those games that can sit there for a I mean, we did play it. We did follow the 2-hour rule, but we didn't beat it. We didn't play it all the way through, and it'll sit there for a while. I think that's fine. And it's a long game. It's going to be a long haul, and I don't think, that it's, I think that game has a lot of life to it for the $60 that we spent on it. So even though it's your most expensive game, I think it was still a good purchase.
Agreed. No, I'm definitely looking forward to probably in 2024 playing Baldur's Gate 3 more seriously. The other notable one for me was Sea of Stars, which was $31. I did get it on a little bit of a sale. I have not beaten it yet, but I did play a good bit of it, and I am looking forward to getting back into it the next time that I travel, I think. It's a really good Steam Deck game, so it's really good for like taking on the go. And that's what I've kind of been saving it for is the next kind of long trip that I do. And so that's coming up. It's going to be a little bit of a coin toss between that one and Super Mario RPG on the Switch, but Sea of Stars was definitely a good purchase for me in 23.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotten great reviews. This is one of those ones that I wish I was more interested in, just because, everyone seems so, so positive about it. And I just haven't, I don't know. It's just, I don't know if it's not my thing, or it's calling back to that like classic JRPG kind of thing. And I don't have that nostalgia. So that's kind of lost on me, but I always kind of see that one and be like, oh man, should I go and get that? And your review of it has been so positive. So yeah, we'll see. Probably not going to happen for me, but that price is probably a little high for me.
Any other notes you want to point out before I get to the grand total?
Yeah, there are two things on here that I'm interested that you purchased that I don't know that I knew about. So this is actually also a cool little side note of this is Chris and I get to a little peek into each other's lives on like, what did you actually purchase on Steam this year? Can we talk about 3D Mark for a second? You bought 3D Mark for $7. What was that all about?
Yeah, I did buy 3D Mark for $7. I got a new graphics card at the beginning of the year, and I basically wanted to benchmark it, and 3D Mark was on sale, and I bought it for $7. That's all there is to it. I mean, I'm not like running benchmarks daily, but like it was fun.
Were you interested? Like, were you worried that your graphics card was like something was wrong with it, or was it just like, hey, I've got something I just want to see the numbers?
It was mostly just the numbers. It was a little bit of I want to compare my old with my new graphics card. Like I think I ran the numbers on my old GPU, and then I did the same test on the new GPU. And so the old GPU was like 3 frames per second, and like the new GPU is like 120 frames a second or whatever for ray tracing, because I didn't have an RTX card before. So it was really just I just spent a whole bunch of money. We'll talk about that later. I just spent a whole bunch of money on this GPU. Let me kind of quantify how much better it is than the other thing.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. The other one that I'm interested in on here is Dome Keeper. I remember Dome Keeper during a demo or something. I don't know if it's still in early access or not. But that game looked really interesting to me, and I see that you purchased it. Did you play Dome Keeper?
Yes, I did play Dome Keeper. I bought it on sale. I did basically two game buying Steam transactions this year, other than kind of the big ones, and this was in a bunch with one of them, and that was because I was going on a trip, I think, and I wanted to have something again kind of Steam Deck ready. I actually, humorously enough, didn't play it on the Steam Deck. But I did play it on the PC with a controller, and it was pretty fun. It's like a little tower defense game with like you live in a little dome, and like you have two phases where like one is like a mining kind of thing, sort of like a Motherlode, if you're familiar with that old game. It's like an old Flash game, or the Steam World Dig games. And then that's combined with kind of a like retro, what was that game called? Missile Command or whatever, the one with where you like are like a little turret in the center of a screen, and there's like enemies that come and you have to shoot them from a turret on your base in the center of the screen. So anyway, it's a fun little game. It's not like amazingly gripping, and I don't know that it was worth the $11 that I spent on it, but I know it definitely wasn't worth the $20 or whatever the normal price was. So I picked it up when it was cheap, and I was like, it's a fun little game, and it wasn't too bad. And I did play it within 2 hours, so I did follow the 2-hour rule.
I just feel like that's like prime Humble territory. So I it hasn't been yet. So good purchase, I guess. That's just one of those ones where I guess a lot of things on your list, and we won't go through them all. You took some risks this year, saying, okay, well, I'm going to buy this, even though it may come to Humble.
I did, and a lot of those were motivated by wanting to play on the Steam Deck in a certain time frame. So I've been pushed a little bit sooner to buy some games based on trying to kind of stock up a little bit before travel than I may have otherwise if I was just kind of at home. And another one that I was looking at the list here and wanted to just mention is that I did buy Roguebook for $9, and that was something that was actually on Game Pass, and I played a bunch on Game Pass and then bought on Steam so that I could have it when it inevitably goes off of Game Pass. So I was almost using Game Pass as like a little trial there. And I played, I don't know, probably 10 hours of it on Game Pass, and then I bought it on Steam. So that was one that I sort of double bought, which I think I did with a bunch of stuff last year.
Yes, last year your number on Steam was much higher, and I do remember it being a lot of overlap.
So without further ado, my Steam total this year, remember Jason's was 224. Mine was 193 this year.
You got a lot of good deals. You did a really good job.
Yes. So I'm pretty happy with that. I think, and that I would say reflects like the other important activity to this activity is that we kind of get to but decide if we feel like something was worth it, right? Feel if we made good choices, see if there's any regrets. This I look at my list and I'm like, I would buy any of these games again. So it's definitely
good.
no regrets on these.
It's a really nice opportunity to reflect, and I don't know that I have any regrets this year, kind of looking through the whole thing, and a little bit of a spoiler, but a lot of years I do. And we've been doing it for 4 years now. We've gotten really good about knowing what we're going to regret. Like this has been such a positive kind of experience for us to learn and review and reflect that, unfortunately for the listeners, like it's not as juicy. Like I don't know that I have a, $300 Guild Wars 2 gem purchase to report this year. The other store that is becoming, Chris, you correct me if I'm wrong, but basically a check it first before you buy it on Steam kind of store, is Humble, because you and I have been Humble Choice yearly subscribers for so long. We've got that 20% discount, and I just continue. I mean, it's I'll dig right into it and say, we purchased the yearly Humble Choice subscription. Unfortunately, the way it lined up this year is we purchased it in January of 2023, but then they were doing a really nice deal again in December. And so we bought essentially 2 years worth in the same year. So we won't report on it next year, but the one we purchased back in January was $129 for the year. They were doing a really nice sale in December where you could gift a year of Humble Choice, for $99. So saving $30 there. You could gift it to yourself though. And what Chris and I kind of said is, okay, well, let's someone buy it, and if you can't gift it to yourself, gift it to the other person, then the other person will buy it for the other person. But you were able to gift it to yourself. So with that subscription though, you get 20% off the store. So it doesn't really pay for itself, but it's another kind of like thing to push you towards the Humble store. And I would say I purchased a couple games on Humble Bundle this year because of that discount.
Absolutely. It certainly makes it worth it to check Humble ahead of time, because it's 20% off of whatever sale they already have. So this year we both bought Endless Dungeon also for $24. We played that together. We talked about it on the show. It was great. We're probably going to get back and play it some more. And then the other thing that I bought was V Rising for $13.
I regret not buying V Rising. Am I allowed
Really?
to say that?
You can say whatever you want.
You guys had so much fun with that game. I regret not getting into it.
Yeah, I mean, I played it for like a week, and that was the moment, right? There was kind of like a defined time, because we had like a get together where people all got together and like had a little LAN party, and that was when we played most of it. But then also in like the week or 2 or 3 kind of after that, there was like some trailing, like, oh hey, you want to hop on V Rising for a little bit, and so I did do some of that as well, and that was a very good use of $13.
Yeah, and I always shy away from the vampire type games or the zombie game. Like, it just, I don't really like those kind of settings. But watching you guys play V Rising, like, it didn't. It's there. I mean, it's very apparent that it's
it definitely is a vampire game.
But like, the mechanics were still so deep. Like, it didn't use the vampire setting as a crutch, and that's, I guess, like, that's why I don't like zombies. Zombies are such a cop-out kind of enemy. Like, they're just like, oh, I don't know, what are they going to be fighting? I don't know, zombies? Like, so, like, when you talk about a vampire game, like, I get really nervous about it being just a really shallow kind of experience. And it's not. V Rising looked fun. It seems very deep, very kind of intricate. And I really liked that watching you guys play it. I do regret not buying it. The other game that I purchased on Humble this year was Remnant 2. And again, this was on a discount on Humble, so I would have purchased it on Steam. I purchased it on Humble instead. But I got Remnant 2 for $56. I did follow the 2-hour rule. I did play it immediately, but I didn't play too much of it. And I guess I want to put more time into it. It was fun. I really did enjoy it. It was like it's a shooter Souls-like. I mean, it's a third-person shooter Souls-like, which should really interest me. Like, it does. I really liked the combat, but just other things stole my attention. I mean, 2023 was a crazy year for games. We've talked about it a couple times. So, I think any other year, Remnant 2 would have kept my attention longer. But I bought it. I played it. I don't regret purchasing it. I do wish I had more time to put into it.
That one was one that I looked at because you were playing it with a couple of other people because it came out in 2023. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, is this a thing that people are getting into? Should I look into this and play it? It was not my thing. Like, it did not look like it would be for me. So I did not buy this one. I wasn't super tempted either. But I'm glad that you enjoyed it, and I hope you get back into it at some point.
Okay, for those of you that have Excel open at home, that means my Humble Bundle total for the all that I spent on the Humble Bundle store this year was $308.
And mine was $265. But that should be much less next year because we won't have the Humble Choice at all.
Right. Hey, Chris.
Yeah, Jason.
On a similar topic of being really low in future years.
Uh-huh.
Last year or the year before, I don't remember when you did it, but last year I purchased 3 years of the best deal in gaming.
Yes, for me it was 2 years ago.
Okay. So this year I am very, very proud to report that I spent $0 on Microsoft Store this year.
Wow. That's kind of an accomplishment. My spending on the Microsoft Store was $31 because I bought some Sea of Thieves coins to get some cosmetics in Sea of Thieves. Every once in a while you throw a couple bucks at a developer because you like their game, and, Sea of Thieves, you buy it once, you play it forever. They come out with some pretty cool cosmetics, and that's really the only like differentiator in that game, as we've discussed before. So I like to have a cool ship. So I bought some coins, and I spent $30 to do it. So that was all I spent at the Microsoft Store.
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah. So it's all good. So mine was $31. Yours was $0. That's good. I looked at last year's. Last year you did the whole dance of getting the, Game Pass Ultimate for 3 years. So you spent a whole bunch of money. I spent $0 at Microsoft last year.
Ah, okay. So I had my day in the sunlight this year.
Exactly. Yeah. So the pendulum swings back and forth. I did want to take a second, and while we were looking at the Microsoft Store, mention that I was in my Microsoft account earlier, and it was talking about how it would renew my Game Pass Ultimate for, I think, $16.99 a month when it renews. And that's a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very happy we did kind of the upfront purchase, and I still use Xbox Game Pass pretty often. I mean, I'm still going there checking, and I would say I still have a decent number of games downloaded that I use. But when it comes time to renew it, I think I may follow my standard kind of subscription rule, which is, subscribe and then unsubscribe and kind of wait until the end of, the season 2 weeks, right? Like sometimes I don't play games for more than 2 weeks. And when it comes time to have to pay that $16, I think I'm going to need to make the rule with myself that I'll never hesitate to resubscribe, but that I will always unsubscribe, because I think, the subscription there, like the Xbox Game Pass kind of subscription there is like, it's a nice thing to kind of have in your back pocket. It was a good deal for like the $4 a month that we got it for. It was a great deal. I mean, it was the best deal.
The best deal in gaming.
But when it goes to $17 a month, I think it's going to be one of those things that we need to make sure that we're using month to month, rather than just kind of let run in the background.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm with you there 100%.
I don't think that stops it from being the best deal in gaming. I think the other side is we may be able to downgrade to just the PC gaming, because the Ultimate was the same price whether you're doing PC Game Pass or Ultimate Game Pass when you were doing the deal that we did. Mm-hmm. But it gets you cloud gaming, which I don't know that you're using very heavily. I'm not using it. I mean, at all. I mean, I think I've used it a couple times as kind of an experiment or like playing on the Steam Deck, but I'm not using it regularly. It's not something I actually need.
I did use it on the Steam Deck. I remember I launched Forza Motorsport, I think. But that's only because I was on the Steam Deck and like either away from home or didn't want to install it on my full gaming PC, or I wanted to like lay on the couch and play like a racing game. So I did do a little bit of streaming this year, but I think that was like an hour. Like it wasn't much.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens with Microsoft, with Game Pass, when all is said and done, and these discounts stop being a thing.
Speaking of subscriptions, Jason.
Oh boy.
We have a new category. So we used to have separate categories for Blizzard and Guild Wars 2. We've combined those this year into an MMOs category, where we have kind of World of Warcraft, Guild Wars 2, anything else, kind of MMO-ish. Jason put Warframe in there. So this year, for me anyway, I had a total of 7 months of World of Warcraft subscription for $93. And then I had what I called WoW accessories, which is like things like raid bots, which does sims, and like Ask Mr. Robot, which is another thing that sort of does sim like gear finding, best gear stuff and that kind of thing. I had another $40 of that. So my WoW total was $133.
Yeah, I had some weirdness going on with WoW this year. So I have a subscription. I had a subscription for, I don't know, however many months this works out to, but I paid $80 for the monthly subscription. I only ever do monthly. You do some deals on 6 month. I don't commit like that. I can't do it. But in the end, it seems like we spent a very similar amount on subscriptions. Last year, if you remember last year's episode, if you are keeping track, said that I snuck something into 2023. And I realized now this year that the thing I snuck that I have to report on this year that probably belonged in 2022 was the Dragonflight Epic Edition. So the way that I did World of Warcraft is I said, fine, I'll come play with you guys. I'm going to buy the base Dragonflight kind of expansion, and I can always buy the Epic upgrade later. So I did that, I think, November, December-ish timeframe in 2022. And by the time 2023 rolled around, I was like, okay, I'm in this. I'm going to play this. I actually upgraded to the Epic edition, which was $43, but included a month of game time. So like it was one of those things that like, okay, $43 minus $16 for that, that month that I would have spent anyway, plus some other stuff. Like, so I did the upgrade. Probably belongs, it really belonged in 2022 when I actually bought the expansion, but I snuck it in here because I upgraded at a later time. And then I also did some weirdness with faction changes and character transfers. I think you did these in 2022, like you got a deal in 2022. And then I happened to move some stuff in 2023. This is if I regret anything in this entire list, it's this. Like, I don't actually regret it, but like $41 for a character transfer and a faction change. And maybe I bought a bundle with a couple of them involved, but I think they were actually $20 each.
You bought the individual ones because I bought the 3x bundle. Like, I did the 3 faction changes and 3 realm transfers. And we talked about it last year because there was a holiday sale for those services. And I paid a total last year of $77 in 2022 to buy a 3-pack of both of those things. And so I think you paid $41 for one of both of those things.
Yeah, like $20-ish each. That's true. That's crazy.
Too much.
That's a little out there. I'm very happy that World of Warcraft in general, we've talked about it in general, is kind of moving to a world where realms don't matter. They're going cross server guilds. They're really kind of tearing down that faction divide barrier. So I'm happy they're moving that direction. I did this at a time where those were still pretty strict. And I'm disappointed with how much it cost. I would not ever do that again. WoW's moving a direction where it's not going to be as necessary, and I didn't find very much value in it in the end. It's not a huge regret, but if there's one on the list, that's it right there. So my total for World of Warcraft for the year of 2023, which remember includes that little sneak, was $164. So slightly more than Chris.
Wow. Yeah. Interesting.
I think yours was higher last year. Again, I think we're kind of like off by a year on some of these. We tend to do that. I think that's a good kind of commentary, is that like there are some things where I lead you and you kind of follow in the game, kind of like you have me test the waters. And then there's sometimes where you kind of test the waters and I say, okay, I'll follow you. And sometimes it happens kind of at the end of the year where our actual purchases are split. We've done that with Eve, right? Where I kind of went and I was like, no, don't follow me. And we've done it with World of Warcraft, right? You kind of got back into World of Warcraft for Dragonflight. You're like, hey, this expansion's really good. And I kind of followed you a little later. So I think that's what's happening here.
Yeah, I took a look at last year. I spent over $200 on WoW last year. So that it definitely follows kind of a TikTok for us.
Another MMO that we both play is Guild Wars 2. And I would say I play maybe a little bit more than Chris, maybe a lot more than Chris.
Maybe a lot more.
But this has been an area that I have had regrets in the past. And I am very happy to report that while I didn't spend $0 on gems, which are the premium currency for Guild Wars in 2023, I did spend a much more reasonable amount on it this year. Last year, for comparison, I spent a little more than $300 on gems.
Wow.
This year, I made one purchase of gems for $50. And I'm happy with that. With the amount of time I put into Guild Wars 2, with the amount of fun that I have, the amount of time I play, I think that's reasonable. Give the developer that money. It's basically the subscription, right? I spent $80 on WoW subscription. I spent $50 on Guild Wars 2 gems. That seems pretty reasonable to me. I also bought the expansion. Guild Wars 2 had an expansion this year. I bought the premium edition because I'm crazy. And I liked everything that came with it, and I was going to use it all and whatever. I spent $81 on Secrets of the Obscure for a total of Guild Wars 2 of $134 this year. You'll note that World of Warcraft, Guild Wars 2, pretty close.
Yeah, that is interesting. They're both kind of in the mid hundreds range. I also bought Guild Wars 2 Secrets of the Obscure this year, and I agonized over the like good, better, best editions that they had. And I believe it was a wise Jason that said, you don't need the highest level thing. Don't bother. It's not worth it for you because you don't play this game. And he was right. I did play the game. I did play, you know, the story content and worked through, you know, the new stuff in the expansion. But then I kind of stopped, right? So I played for like a month maybe. And I only spent $25 on the expansion because I bought the cheapest, lowest, you know, version of it. And I didn't do like Jason with WoW and pay for the upgrade. So that's all I spent. I spent $25 on Guild Wars 2 this year.
I think that's perfect for you. You got story out of it. You got, you know, 10 chapters of story. And then you I don't know if you know this or not, but you also have the next 3 kind of mini releases, the next 3 quarters of releases, which include a couple chapters of story each now, right? It's not, they don't do it where you have to log in anymore. You just, if you buy the expansion, you get all of the post story after with it included. So for $25, that's a great deal. I think you did it, like, for the amount of time you play and like for the amount of that you got out of it so far and that you will get out of it. I think that's a steal. That's a really good deal. And I think you did it perfectly.
Yeah, I'm very happy with that. No regrets. I got exactly what I paid for. I got exactly what I wanted out of it. I did miss out on some, you know, shiny cosmetic-y things that I don't even remember what they were, but that's okay.
Exactly. And then I have a third category that Chris does not have.
Uh-huh.
I really like Warframe. And I am one of those people that think, you know, let's support Digital Extremes and what they're doing. I really liked the shiny stuff in Warframe, even more than Guild Wars 2. So I spent a lot. I don't regret it. I've spent way more on Warframe in previous years, not this year. But they did have their 10-year anniversary this year.
Oh.
And that's what most of my purchases are centered around. So they had their TennoCon, which is their conference. You know, it was kind of 10-year themed, kind of not. But I bought the digital pack, which comes with, you know, some cosmetics. It comes with, you know, some stuff in game. Like you can go to the TennoCon relay in game, like, which is a social area. So I bought that. That was $25. I thought that was reasonable. That's kind of in lieu of like a physical ticket of going. So, you know, I thought that was reasonable. And then right at the end of the year, and I teased this last time or a couple episodes maybe, where I said, Chris, we cannot record early. So we are recording right after the top of the year because we needed to make sure that we caught every purchase through the end of the year. And this is the exact reason why. On December 27th, I bought some more Warframe cosmetics, particularly the ones themed around their 10-year anniversary, because they are exclusive, right? They said, we're going to sell these through the end of the year to celebrate our 10-year, and they will never be available again. And they introduced a new kind of cosmetic for like a new thing entirely. And I was like, oh God, it's just the temptation is so real. And then, you know, I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to do it. I don't need to do it. And then like the countdown timer of like, these are never going to be available ever again. And I was like, I cannot, I have to. So I spent $96 on the Warframe heirloom collection, on December 27th, right at the end of the year there. I don't regret it. It was a good purchase. I'm happy about it. I immediately equipped everything I got from it. So it was good. But I overall spent $121 on Warframe this year. Which again, like if you look back at previous years, Chris, Prime Access alone, just one Prime Access from like that occurs every 3 months, I would have in the past spent $140 on that. And I think there were some previous years, if you go back and look at the actual notes, that I had spent over $300 on Warframe in a single year. And I would say I spent a similar amount of time in Warframe this year and was much more reasonable about my purchases.
Hey, I think that's great. I think if that's, you know, I get it. I am not judging on any of the Warframe stuff. You know, you like Warframe quite a bit. I don't get it. But I like Dota 2 and I do the same thing. So I get it. That reminded me when you're talking about TennoCon, I was tempted to buy the BlizzCon, like digital deluxe, whatever, like the give us money to get in-game stuff around the time of BlizzCon. And I didn't do it. But I thought about it. and it included a bunch of stuff. I think it included some game time or something if you bought like the highest tier of it. But I skipped it, and that was okay. I didn't really miss out on anything major. I was also, speaking of conferences and cons and going to things, tempted to go to the International, as we discussed on the show. I don't think that would have fallen into this particular year in review, but it would have been a lot of money. So I didn't do that either. But I get it, right? Being a fan, wanting to kind of show support and do that kind of stuff, that makes total sense.
So are we saying here and now, right now, today, written in the rule book, that if you go to a conference, it doesn't count?
I think it would be, because we've never done it before, I think it would be a separate division, right? We would have software, hardware, and travel or something.
Okay. Because I am like 85% sure I'm going to TennoCon next year.
Okay. Maybe we should discount. I don't know. Cause because then it includes travel costs, and that's a whole nother thing. And like, I think that's outside the scope of this conversation.
Maybe just the ticket to go.
Okay. Maybe. Yeah. Not the trip, but the ticket.
Yeah. Because, it's driving distance for me, and it's in July, and I've always wanted to go, and it next year I'm trying to sell it this way. Next year they're going to a 2-day event instead of a 1-day. There's just so many reasons to go now. So I'm probably going to go next year. So I just want to set the ground rules now.
Okay. Man, that sounds like fun. Like, I want to go to some kind of esports or kind of like game convention event. I've never been to anything ever. But I cannot get excited enough about Warframe to go with you. Like, I'm not invited, but I'm also not coming. So, yeah, I hope you have fun.
Yeah, you're definitely not invited. No, I went to have you ever been to any of them?
I have never been to like a Comic-Con type event or anything like that ever.
Okay. I went to Sony Online Entertainment's convention a long time ago for Star Wars Galaxies with I met like 6 guildmates there. It was actually a lot of fun.
Oh, that's cool.
People I'd never met in person, only had ever talked through like on Ventrilo. And we all met in Vegas. It was in Vegas. So, I mean, that's perfect. And I went to that. That was a lot of fun. Possibly you could convince me to go to BlizzCon next year.
Oh, wow. I don't know if I even want to go to BlizzCon next year, but that's good to know as a data point.
That's the only one where I think we share enough of an interest where we would both go.
See, I was going to say, I feel like I could possibly drag you to the International if it was not $800 a ticket.
That's possible. I'd be much more likely to go to the International if it wasn't on the West Coast, but that's never not going to happen.
Well, BlizzCon is in California.
Yeah, I know, but I'm more interested in BlizzCon and Blizzard than I am in Dota.
Fair enough.
Because I actually play it. I've played all of the Blizzard games at some point, except for maybe Diablo 4.
I am the same.
But I played Diablo 3.
I played Diablo 3. I did not play Diablo 4, which also came out this year, and neither of us bought it, we should note.
Oh, yeah, good point.
But there were some friends that were playing, and there was a little bit of FOMO, but it was well resisted.
Yeah, quickly the FOMO died out. I guess technically I haven't played Overwatch 2.
Oh, I have.
Oh, I haven't. I played Overwatch 1, which is basically the same thing.
For all of one day.
Nah, I played a little longer than that. But anyway, again, for those keeping track, if you add all of my MMO costs together, that category for me is $419 for the year of 2023.
And mine was $158.
I think that's probably the prime category where you switched a lot of time and spend from that and Dota 2 over to console games. Would you agree with that? Is that where a lot of your like time and money came from?
I think so. I mean, if I look at, previous years and things, right, my Steam spending alone in 2022 was over $500 on games. And this year it was, less than half of that. And, with the 2-hour rule going in, which we had last year as well, but like just playing more into the 2-hour rule and such, right? I did less PC gaming, and I did more traveling this year too. I was away from home more often than I had been in the past. So I was spending more time on the road and on the go, and playing on the Switch or playing on the Steam Deck. So I think, yeah, you're right. MMOs probably lost out a little bit, and I was only subscribed to WoW for half the year, whereas I think in 22 or maybe 21 I was subscribed for a full year. So those things have definitely adjusted. I don't know. Yeah, for me it's much lower on the PC side of things than it is on the console side for this year. Well, really,
what a great transition, Chris, because I can talk about my console games really quickly.
Yeah, please enlighten us.
I spent $0 on any PlayStation 5 or Switch games this year. I should have spent more because I was planning on playing more on the PS5. But I think this was a victim of all of the other things going on in my life. And PlayStation is kind of like that. You just need a space to kind of set up. And like, I was absolutely setting up my PC, and I just haven't gotten around to the PlayStation space yet. I think this will be a much bigger category for me in 2024.
Really? So,
but this year, I mean, nothing on PlayStation, nothing on Switch. I anticipate buying a couple games for Switch and a couple games for PS5, this coming year. So I think, the conversation is going to change when we have this again next year. But unfortunately, I have nothing to report in the console games category.
Yes, we went through all this effort to rearrange the things to report the PC and the console game separately, exclusively because of my list. So thank you for, giving us your very thorough report on your console gaming last year.
You're welcome.
For me, I bought 2 full-on PS5 games, Spider-Man 2 and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth pre-order. I did those both in the last quarter of the year. And then I spent a lot of time on the PS5 playing God of War Ragnarok, which I bought last year in 2022.
So did I.
Oh, yeah. You did buy it, but you did not spend a lot of time playing it.
I haven't played it yet.
So, yes, exactly. So those are my 2 games. So those were $70 each because that's what games cost now. I did also buy the Horizon Forbidden West DLC because it was on sale on Black Friday. So my total on games was $153. And then I also spent $45 on PlayStation Plus. And I wanted to call this out specifically. I am still subscribed to the basic, essential level PlayStation Plus. They raised their prices in June or July, and I am not renewing PS Plus for the first time in a decade. I'm not going to have PlayStation Plus.
And why would you? What does it give you that you need or want?
So consoles, right, are still in the old silly mindset of you have to pay to get our online services, right? So if you want to play games online, you have to pay.
Sure, but you don't play anything online.
I did. Well, okay, you're correct. But when I first got the PS5, there was the PlayStation Plus game collection, which came with a bunch of stuff. And then every month you do get a couple of games to keep as long as you're a subscriber. And I think
that's
if
true.
You resubscribe, you kind of get access to them again. I redeem those games almost every month just to have them. I don't play them, but I have them. I have them all redeemed on my PlayStation account, with the intention that I'll maybe play these someday, which hasn't really happened, but whatever. It was really what this comes down to is it was cheap enough that it was able to fly under the radar, right? So I spent $45 this year. I think I had gotten a deal for $24 the year before. It was much cheaper.
For the whole year?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
They would do deals where you could get Amazon would sell the gift card code or whatever for $25 or something. And it's at that point, yeah, I get, on the occasion that there's something big that I want that comes through the PS Plus pipeline, then that's worth it for me. And it also gets you some discounts on extra discounts on their eShop and stuff.
No, I agree. The $25 for like a free game of some sort once a month. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. You get to download and keep that game, or do you only have access to it if you're still a subscriber?
You only have access if you're a subscriber, but if you unsubscribe and resubscribe, I believe you still kind of get access to those for having subscribed, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
But the problem is they increased the prices, and now it is no longer cheap enough to fly under the radar. The current price for a year of the PlayStation Plus Essential, which I think is the most basic subscription, is $80 a year.
Yeah, that's different than 24.
Exactly. It's just too much, right? It's too much to be able to ignore. So I can't do it anymore, and it makes me a little sad, but that's just how it is. That's their choice.
I'd like to note one thing. I'm also looking at their subscription plans right now.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to note one thing. I don't know if did we say it on the show, or did we just say it to each other? But at some point you said, you know what would really make the best deal in gaming the best deal in gaming is if they had old Ubisoft games like EA Play kind of has the, more than 6 months or more than 12-month old EA games on Game Pass. Do you see what comes with the middle tier of the PlayStation bundle, the PlayStation Plus bundle?
Yeah, it's a bunch of games to stream and play. Well, not stream, but play.
Yes, but specifically there is a tag that says in the PlayStation Plus Extra, which is the good, better, best level, you get access to the Ubisoft Plus Classics.
Oh, look at that. Yeah, okay.
Which I assume are Ubisoft games that have been out for at least a year or two.
Yeah, probably.
They need that in Game Pass.
Well, I'm sure that they have some contract that says that because they're in PlayStation Plus, they can't be in Game Pass.
Yeah, but I want to play them on PC. I don't want to play them on my PlayStation. Actually, I maybe kind of do, but to get that, it's $134 a year. I'm not paying that.
It's insane, right? It's so expensive.
Yeah, I mean, you can pay for the actual Ubisoft Plus subscription, which gives you unlimited Ubisoft games on all of platforms for $15 a month.
And that's all the new ones too, right? That's like the first run.
Yeah, that's the brand new. Yeah, first run. So I just, no thanks. No thanks.
One thing that I do think I will miss from PlayStation Plus a little bit on the PS5 is that they've added this game help option, which when you're trying to do trophy collection is actually kind of helpful. I mean, it's no better than something you can look up on IGN, which is what I will do now. But like having it kind of in the game and like in the console where you can just be like, oh, show me a quick little video of like the best way to do this thing in Spider-Man where you have to, fly from a particular building to like a particular other building, like what's the best route, and you can like without having to go to YouTube, without having to go to IGN, like you can just figure that out in the console. So I'll miss that a little bit. I mean, it's not major, it's certainly not $80 worth useful, but it is one thing that I do actually use that's technically part of the PlayStation Plus benefits.
Yeah, it's kind of cool that it's built in, but the information is not unique.
They even added a way to pin the trophy list to the side of the screen while you play the game. So it like makes the game like 80% of its size and then puts a sidebar so you can keep track of your trophy progress as you play the game if you are that into it, which I'm not.
Is that part of game help or is that just a feature?
I think it's just a feature.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, we spent a lot of time talking about PS5.
Well, you spent $200 on it.
That's true. I did spend $200 on it. We should move on though and talk about the Switch because I spent $300 on the Switch.
Spoiler.
Sorry, I had to lead off with that.
Yeah, that's surprising to even me, but there has been, I think I said it last episode. I mean, we talked about the year kind of recap last episode. This has been a Switch year.
Absolutely. Yes. I played many games. I played 6 games on the Switch this year, and most of them played like to completion. So obviously Tears of the Kingdom was right up there. Pikmin 4 was up there for me. I also bought Pikmin 1 and 2. This was again kind of another like, I'm traveling, I want to play this game. And I was traveling. The first half of my trip was before Pikmin 4 came out. So I was like, oh, I want to get in the Pikmin spirit. Like, let me, play Pikmin 1 or 2. I think I played all of Pikmin 1 before Pikmin 4 came out. And then I bought Super Mario Wonder and Super Mario RPG. And all of those 5 games were all $50 each because of the Nintendo Switch Online game voucher system that we've talked about in the past, where you pay $100 and you get 2 games. So if you have $60 games, you're getting them for $50. You have $70 games like Tears of the Kingdom, you're also getting them for $50, but you're saving $20.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the oddball off the wall game that I bought this year was Metroid Dread, which I did play a little bit of and haven't gotten back to. But it was kind of a weird game.
I don't even know what this game is. This is like Samus Metroid?
Yeah. That's that one.
And was this because they remade that game this year or last year?
Yeah, there's a Metroid Prime
remake, right?
remastered. That's a different game. Yeah, this Metroid Dread came out when the Switch OLED came out in 2022. And it's kind of like I guess it's a horror-ish game. It's not really a horror game, but it's not like super scary. But the idea is that you're in like a Metroid kind of game with like little platforming that Metroid is. But then there's these little things that are hunting you. And so if they kind of spot you, then they start chasing you and you have to like hide and go invisible and stay quiet and all this stuff. You probably wouldn't like it. It probably would be too scary for you. But it was
too scary.
It was pretty fun. Like it was pretty good.
What compelled you to buy this game?
Part of it was on sale for $37. Part of it was I had just gotten a new Switch OLED and wanted something that would kind of show off the contrast and the blacks of the dark space station looking Metroid kind of thing instead of just like bright colors like Mario Kart. Part of it was I was taking the Switch on a trip and I wasn't taking the Steam Deck. So I was kind of loading up on Switch things. So lots of factors. I did play it within 2 hours. It was 2-hour rule approved, but it didn't stick.
Yeah, that's fair. You also Nintendo Switch Online for $20. Is PS5's not, or PS Plus is not going to continue? Is this one going to keep going?
No, this one is a one-time kind of thing because of those vouchers. So if they continue the game voucher thing, if I can continue to get save $20 on 2 $60 games at least once a year, then it pays for itself. Or, it is no additional cost, I guess. And sometimes you get some little perks from being Nintendo Switch Online. Like they have, some extra little mini game kind of things that come. Like, there's little things like that. It's only $20. This is one where it is flying under the radar and it does provide enough value. It also does like cloud backups, right? Cloud save backups, which is nice, especially for a portable console. So I like it. I'll keep it as long as it's cheap. If they try to go to $80, it's not worth that.
And this is their lowest level, right? They have a lot of add-ons where you can get like emulator kind of stuff. And
yes, they have the N64 emulation and the Sega Genesis emulation in their expansion pass, which is, I think, another like $25 a year or so. I did get tempted to go in that direction, especially after I beat Tears of the Kingdom. I was like, oh man, Legend of Zelda games are fun. I should play Ocarina of Time, right? Which I never really played because I didn't have an N64. So I was tempted, but I did not give in to getting the expansion pass on the Switch Online.
I need to see your OLED. I need to see it. I think I would be much more. I don't know. Maybe not. Who knows? I haven't touched mine in forever. I miss Mario Kart all the time. I love playing Mario Kart when like I'm on a plane or something like that. And Super Mario Wonder looks so fun, and Super Mario RPG is weirdly calling my name. I don't know. It's I'm feeling the pendulum swing that way, and I think I may start to look for Switch OLED deals. I know the Switch 2 is coming out. I know, but I think you're right that they're not going to release an OLED, and I'm not going to be tempted to upgrade right away. It's more about the games, so we'll see.
I will say Mario Kart looks great on the OLED screen.
I bet it does. And they've got all those new maps now, old maps now, whatever they're called.
Yeah, new old maps.
Okay, would you like to recap, Chris? My total's $0.
Yeah, my total for console gaming, just the games part, was $505. Was a little pricey this year.
Yeah, but let's look at it in context. Let's talk about our games overall subtotal. So like we said at the top of the episode, this is how we kind of organize it. We're putting all games together, and then we'll talk about all hardware together. My games total for 2023 is $951. And if you remember, that's all PC. All of it's on PC. $951.
And my total of everything was $1,152. So $1,152 versus $951. $200 more than Jason.
Only $200. Like you spent so much on console, but you took it all from PC. And that's really why we reorganized the way that we did, because your landscape on what you play just changed. It is now so much more heavily weighted that way. And like I said, I think I'm going to follow that. I think I'll be there next year. So yeah. In comparison, I am similar to 2020 numbers, but much lower than previous 2021 and 2022. In 2022, by comparison, just on games alone, which includes, we went back, we crunched all the numbers. So I'm throwing like God of War Ragnarok and all of that. So if you crunch all of the numbers for all of the games that I spent in 2022, I was at $1,554. I'm $600 lower this year.
Wow. Yeah, my last year was $1,326 altogether, which is about $200 more than this year. So I actually spent, $200 less on games this year, which is
that's Dota 2 right there.
That's Dota 2. That's one Dota 2.
That's one Dota 2, please. So we were pretty close there. That was reasonable, and I would say I'm not surprised to see that we both went down a little bit, following kind of the stay-at-home era of 2020 and 2021, kind of in 2020. I'm not surprised that our numbers kind of were inflated during those years, but I think you and I settle pretty reasonably around that $1,000 mark on games and software. I think that's kind of where our norm is going to settle in the long term. I think if you average it out, that's what you're going to see. We'll see over the next couple of years. We'll keep crunching these data. We'll start to build averages and see where we actually end up. But I'm not surprised by that. On a different note, though, our hardware totals are vastly different this year.
Here we go.
Because Chris made some very big, I'll call them investments. Are you okay with that word?
Yes, let's use that word. Investments is great.
And that Chris did say this when we were kind of putting this together. He said, "Hey, let's split hardware out, because you talk about games typically when we're applying the 2-hour rule. So theoretically, games are used within the year that they're purchased, unless you're Jason and it's God of War Ragnarok. Typically, you're playing them right away, and their value is kind of contained within that year. Sometimes, usually." Hardware is different. Hardware is an investment over time. It lasts years. It just is one of those things that you may spend 1 year and use the same piece. I mean, I still have PS5 on here, right? My PS5 that I purchased in 2020 and my Steam Deck that I purchased in 2022, like those are still things that I use. I still use the same PS5 that I purchased 2-3 years ago. So it's different. And I think you need to look at this category a little differently. That being said, our numbers are orders of magnitude different.
Yes, they are. So if you recall, at the beginning of this year, in January of 2023, I was on the hunt for a GPU. And I ended up buying an NVIDIA RTX 4090, which is, the best GPU that NVIDIA still makes to this day. So it's made it the whole year as the best, top dog. I hope nobody tell me anything different.
Yeah. No, as far as I know.
And so I spent like $1,800 on that GPU, that was MSRP, right? Remember, GPUs were being scalped and like being insanely overinflated in price. I said I'm only going to buy this at MSRP, and I did, and I got it. And I hope to keep this graphics card for like 10 years because it was so expensive.
I'm going to try to make you feel a little better. And I'm going to try to do that by saying today we are now in 2024, at least up until this point, from the point that we're recording, you still have the best graphics card that I know is available, and the price hasn't come down that much, if at all.
That's true. That's fair. Okay.
And you got a whole year out of it. Like, that's unheard of for graphics cards.
Yeah. All right. Okay. That's a good feel. Also, I'm on a kind of a TikTok alternating cycle of I upgrade my PC hardware and then I upgrade my graphics card a couple years later. And then I do it again, right? Then I'll go CPU and motherboard and memory another year, and then GPU, several years after that. So it's kind of like every 5 to 7 years I'm looking for a new CPU, and then every 5 to 7 years on the off cycle looking for a new GPU. So this was just a GPU cycle for me, and I decided to go super high, top of the line. Did I need to do that? No. Should I have done that? Maybe not. But I don't really regret it. Right now, it's just a thing I have, and it's a thing I can use, and it's very future proof, and I can use it for a long time.
I'm not saying I'm jealous that you made the decision to do what you did when you did, but I wish I was a slightly more inclined to do it when you did how you did. I don't know that I regret it. I don't know that I regret not buying one. But you made a good call. You made it at the right time when scalping was kind of done, and you bought it at MSRP. And I know that was hard, but you did. You got it done. And I didn't make any investments in my PC this year. And I don't really like your kind of off cycle upgrade plan. That's not really my style. I like to do kind of the whole thing at once, because then I like to have a whole unit to kind of move somewhere else and do something with, right? Create a server out of it, or maybe a PC for the TV or something like that. Like, that's my plan when the time is right. But, man, hearing you have a 4090 and knowing, honestly, like some of the troubles that I'm having right now with some of the games I play, not bad, but I've always said, like, I know it's time to start looking when I have to downgrade the graphics that I'm playing on from like ultra to high to medium is when I start saying, okay, it's maybe time to start looking. And then, cause by the time I make a decision, it's going to be like, that's when my stuff is going to start hitting kind of recommended spec levels or minimum spec levels. So I don't know. I don't really have a whole lot to say about it other than I am a little jealous. I'll admit it. I'm a little jealous.
Well, that makes me feel a little better. So thank you for humoring me.
You made the right call. It was expensive, but you made the right call.
And this is one of these things that I wanted to go to the very highest end, right? Because I've always been like, I had a 1070 before I had this 4090, right? And that was the best value, right? That was the best deal, right? For what I kind of wanted to pay. It's like, oh yeah, the 1070 is like the best bang for your buck. And this time I was just like, forget it. I'm going to go all the way to the top and just see what that's like to kind of live on that wave for a little while. So I'm going to see, this is an ongoing experiment to see kind of how long this 4090 will last me. Right. I expect it will last a while, like I said. But I'll be interested to see when it kind of starts to fall out, because this was also, remember, the kind of second, like when ray tracing kind of came into its own, but like the second generation of RTX things, I think. So I think it's in a pretty good spot. I think it's a kind of sweet spot for performance, I hope. So I'm expecting it to last for a while. And I also was sure to register for the like 10-year warranty for it. So if anything goes wrong with it, I can get them to replace it. The other couple of things I have in the hardware kind of category are related to the GPU mostly. So I had to make a couple of PC upgrades to support the massive 4090 size and power draw. I got a new case and a new power supply because the old case and power supply I had were not good enough or big enough for this graphics card. So I did have to do some computer surgery to kind of upgrade that. But that's another thing. Those both are components that will last a long time, right? Assuming the power supply doesn't give out, the case is totally reusable and the power supply can also be moved to a next build.
Chris, do you want to hear what I spent money on my computer this year?
Yeah. What'd you buy?
I needed is a strong word. I wanted to not always need to wear my headphones. You know, if I'm just kind of watching YouTube videos or, I don't know, listening to Spotify or something on my computer, I wanted some speakers. So I bought $17 speakers on Amazon this year. And that's all I have to report for PC hardware.
Don't break the bank.
I know. Oh, man. I just wanted something simple. I don't know. Maybe I've talked about it on the show before. I think we talked about it when we talked about our setups, which was a long time ago. I don't know, episode 70 or 60 or something. But I had a sound bar that was on my desk, and it was under my mounted monitors, and that's what I would use for sound for my computer when I wasn't using my headphones. Well, that soundbar is now part of the PS5 setup that is not currently set up, but will be set up here soon. So I needed something else. And so I just bought, I mean, they literally say Amazon on them. They're Amazon basic speakers that are plugged into my computer. And they were $17. So that's what I have to report.
The other thing in PC hardware that I didn't mention was I had to upgrade my RAM or replace my RAM on kind of an emergency basis because I was playing a game and my computer restarted itself. So I'll see your $17 with $77 for 32 gig of DDR4 RAM.
Yeah, I forgot that was happening, but I do remember some frustration. I mean, it would turn off, right? Restart, and then you would be able to play for a while, and then it would do it again, right? And that's really what triggered this purchase.
Yeah, after the fourth time when I was in the middle of something or talking to people or doing something and my computer just blue screened, I was like, all right, it's not the power supply because the computer's still on, but it's some other component. And the cheapest thing to start diagnosing that is the RAM. So I did a little bit of research, found out that there's a potential for the RAM to get messed up with some of the RGB apps or whatever that came with my motherboard or something. I don't know. But it seemed like the old RAM was dying or dead. And so I replaced it with exactly the same stuff, just several years newer. So that brings my PC total. So yours is $17, I think. Did I have that right?
Yeah. Tough one to add up.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. $17 for you. Mine was almost $2,300 because of the graphics card and related kind of keeping up with the graphics card purchases. So about $2,300 on PC hardware, which is about the cost of a new build of a PC. Maybe not with a 4090 in it.
Not with a good graphics card, let me tell you.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, $2,300 for PC hardware this year. It was a lot, but it's going to last a long time. Shall we move on to other hardware type purchases?
Yeah, so I mean, we did PC hardware, and then we're kind of just throwing all the hardware in another bucket. This includes, in previous years, it includes Chris and I's PS5 that we spent on. It includes the Steam Decks that we purchased. If we were tracking that far, it would have included the Switches when we bought them, and that may be a little spoiler for Chris coming up. Yeah, I mean, this is basically everything else related to gaming. And I think that kind of expands a little bit further. We may not have been perfect about it in previous years. We're saying that, one of our rules is that we typically don't include peripherals like keyboard, mice, headsets. We may discuss changing that here because this is kind of, that's part of that hobby. So we may talk about it. We didn't do it this year, but I have something that's a little ancillary, but we haven't done it in the past. So just know that when we're comparing things to previous years, that we included the actual platform, like PS5 or Steam Deck, but we hadn't kind of included any peripherals.
So this year was the year of the handheld for me. I was very much into handheld things. As Jason kind of foreshadowed, I did buy a Switch OLED this year because I was planning to play Tears of the Kingdom, and I knew that I was doing some travel, and I wanted to have a better handheld experience on the Switch. And I will say it was absolutely worth it. I really, really like the Switch OLED. And as I mentioned last episode, it makes me want a Steam Deck OLED, but it's not different enough to justify. So I am holding off on that one, but I'm so glad that I have the Switch OLED. But that was a, with tax, $370 purchase. So that pushes the total up quite a bit.
You said it's not worth it because it's not different enough, but the Switch OLED is different enough, or it's because it's a lower price point, it made it worth it?
Two things. It is a lower price point for sure, right? The Steam Deck, I would probably buy the highest Steam Deck OLED, maybe the middle one, but it would be the $650 again on the Steam Deck. And the other piece is kind of upgrade cadence, which I know doesn't really count in a year when the Switch 2 is probably coming out in 24. We hope, maybe. But the Steam Deck, I think, is likely to get another revision in 24 or 25, and I'm definitely not buying the Steam Deck 3 times. So I needed to kind of keep myself off of that one and wait for the next one. Also because I had already bought the Switch OLED by the time the Steam Deck OLED was announced.
Did you I just want to ask, you said that it's not differentiated enough. Did you see all of the things that were actually upgraded in the new Steam Deck OLED?
I did. Yes. Longer battery life, slightly faster processor, 90 hertz refresh rate screen. I know all of it.
Switches and triggers changed and switched, new touch interfaces, bigger battery. Like, it wasn't just the screen. Like, they sorely undersold it. And I'm not trying to sell you on the Steam Deck. I'm just trying to defend that it was more of an upgrade than just the screen. The specs didn't change, but the device was slightly re-engineered.
Absolutely, yes. And I certainly appreciate that, and I do know all of those things intellectually. And I shouldn't say they didn't do anything to it. It was just a screen, but it was primarily focused around the screen. Sure, it's a little lighter. Sure, the battery life is slightly longer. Those kinds of things are nice to have, but I still think in the grand scheme of things, and especially because the Steam Deck is a handheld PC, I mean, it runs Linux, but it's, a handheld computer that is kind of subject to the kind of whims of the game developer industry, as opposed to the Switch, where, Nintendo certifies games to run on the Switch. And so if Nintendo sells it on the Switch, it will run on the Switch. I didn't want to find myself in a situation where games started to outpace the hardware even faster, because that's going to, at some point, that curve is going to just go to the sky, right? Where it's like, you can't run these new games on the Steam Deck. And at least the Switch games that come out for the Switch with the Switch labeling on them, for the most part, will run at a decent frame rate and decent specs, because they're designed for that first, instead of, oh yeah, you can get Steam Deck certified, but it's a PC game first and foremost.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And again, I'm not trying to sell you on the Steam Deck OLED. Just defending that, it was probably updated more than the Switch OLED. Like, more changed about it than from the Switch to the Switch OLED than the Steam to the Steam Deck OLED.
That I will absolutely give you. My Switch was also a launch model Switch, which I think yours would be too, but there was some considerations about like battery longevity, right? They did a mid-cycle refresh on the Switch itself to give it more battery life. Even just with the regular old screen, they did something to it that made it more power efficient, or maybe a bigger battery. And the Steam Deck OLED gets that benefit as well. So I was kind of like, it's like a 5-6 year old battery. Like, I can get a new battery, new Switch with a new battery, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it worked out for me. I'm happy with the purchase. It was good. But it didn't do any favors to my overall total this year.
Did you sell your old Switch?
Not yet. I have offered it to a couple of friends. And I think I have one more that I wanted to reach out to. I'm not looking to make tons of money on it, but like, it would be nice to get, $100 more, for the old
because
Switch.
that would offset the purchase of the OLED. Have you considered that it's in a special class if it's a launch Switch, that it can still be jailbroken and it is worth more than a non-launch Switch?
I am aware that it is a launch Switch and that it can be jailbroken. I couldn't really figure out where the market for that was, how I would tell somebody that and if they would care. But I definitely do understand that it has somewhat more value. And I've even considered jailbreaking it myself just for fun. But I'm not going to do that. So I would love to sell it to somebody who is looking for a launch Switch. And I kind of need to get on it before the Switch 2 comes out, because then the market will be flooded with old Switches, I assume. But I just haven't put the time into trying to sell the old Switch in any serious way.
I think the market for launch Switches and jailbreaking has died off considerably in the last year or so. But it is differentiated in that way. I don't know that it's a super big value difference now, just because the demand for it is so much low. Like, anyone that wants one has probably already gotten one. So the demand is probably not too much there anymore.
And now you can do emulation on the Steam Deck. So if you're jailbreaking your Switch to play emulated Nintendo games, like, you can just do that on a Steam Deck now.
Yeah, good point.
So the Switch OLED was not the only handheld that I bought in 2023.
Yeah. This one you put on the list, and I had completely forgotten that you did this.
Yeah. I bought an Analog Pocket, which is like Analog is a company that makes the FPGA based hardware that can play old cartridges and old games like directly as they were. Like it's not emulation, right? You stick the cartridge in the thing and it plays like the original Game Boy. So this was their Game Boy shaped thing, I guess I'll say. It has, backlit color screen, rechargeable battery, USB-C. You can get a dock for it so you can play on the TV, all that good stuff. I did buy the dock. I did buy the Analog Pocket. It's something that they are really bad at, like, having a shop with, stock of things that they just sell like a normal store. They do these like drops and they like pre-announce them, and you have to be there right on time and blah, blah, blah. So we talked about this on the show when I got it, but I did buy the Analog Pocket. I do really like it. But it did, with all of its accessories and things, cost a little over $500. And that was mostly because I wanted to not miss out on being able to ever get one, because they scalp for like $700.
Yeah, no, these are expensive. And in seemingly impossibly low supply. I don't get it.
I don't understand it either, but I will tell a little story as a follow-up. Over Christmas, my parents gave me a gift wrapped up for Christmas that was all of the old Game Boy and Game Gear things that they could find in the house. They wrapped them up for me and put them under the tree. So I did open a package that had all of my old like Game Boy game, not all, but many of my old Game Boy games and Game Gear games and everything else. And they were like, oh yeah, and we got you, here's one of the Game Boys that we had, that we found. And I was like, oh, that's nice. I don't need it, right? I go upstairs and I pulled out the Analog Pocket and I brought it downstairs and plugged in a cartridge, and like it booted right up, and I'm playing Pokemon Pinball on my Analog Pocket off of a cartridge.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
That's the reason I did it, right? Again, it's expensive and it's totally unnecessary, but it was something that made me happy, and I could just play these old games from my childhood on the actual cartridges themselves, not just on emulation. And it was something about that was just really like, that was why I did it.
You have inspired me. This is the major difference here, and for me and you. I also Game Boy was one of my first exposures to gaming. I don't know that I still have any of the old cartridges that I used to play. Maybe I would have to ask my family and see, but I think it would be a stretch to find that stuff. And that's the major difference. If you still have that stuff from when you were a kid and you just need a new piece of hardware with a really nice screen to run these games on all of the cartridges that you still have, this is such a cool thing. And it makes perfect sense. But I don't. I don't have those, and I don't think I have those cartridges, which just it makes this not worth it for me personally. But I'm gonna go ask. Your story has inspired me. Your Christmas gift has inspired me. I'm gonna go ask because this would just be such a cool thing to have, kind of at your fingertips. And you bought the accessories. You bought the dock with it? Is that one of the accessories you bought?
I did, yeah. I bought the dock because the dock has HDMI out, so I can plug in the analog pocket into the dock, plug a old Game Boy cartridge from before HDMI was invented into the analog pocket, and then I can play whatever, Pokemon or whatever.
How do you play it?
You can pair a PS4 or PS5 controller. You can pair a Switch Pro controller. You can buy an 8-bit DO.
Oh god, that's so cool.
Up to 4-player Bluetooth controllers on the dock. Like you can, yeah, it's very cool.
I'm gonna see if I'm gonna ask. I'm gonna see if I can find this stuff.
Well, maybe in 2024 we'll be talking about Jason's purchase of an analog pocket.
Yeah. Well, and here's why, right? Like, so we've been talking about PlayStation 5 for me and setting up kind of a space and really building a kind of gaming room for me, right? Like I have enough room now. I've got my PC gaming kind of set up with my desk, and right next to it I'm putting up kind of the big TV and the PlayStation, and I'll pull out the Switch and set it up there. And why not throw an analog if I have the games for it, right? Like throw an analog pocket on a dock over there and have another kind of opportunity to play some more things on that TV setup. The reason I say all that is because I did make a purchase to facilitate that setup this year. I bought a TV stand. So I have a really nice TV that I had laying around. It used to be mounted on a wall, and I don't really want to mount it on the wall anymore. But I need kind of a stand to put like the PlayStation on, the PS, the Switch on, just kind of display everything there. So I'm counting that as a gaming purchase because its primary use case will be holding a TV that I use for gaming. Again, kind of ancillary, kind of like, little, not really typical gaming gear, but that TV stand was $145, and it's going to hold a 65-inch TV that I plan to exclusively use to play games on. So there.
I would say that absolutely counts as a gaming purchase. Like, so much of my stuff is like general living room stuff that goes into our family, like house living room. But what you're talking about is just for games, and it's in your kind of like gaming room. So that makes sense, and I think it counts as a like gaming purchase. My last piece of hardware was a dock for my Steam Deck. I bought the official Valve one. It was on sale around the 4th of July. We talked about that on the show also. But that was $76. So that brings my handheld hardware, which is, again, outside of the PC world, and that's all of the hardware that I really had for this year, to $972.
Oof.
Yeah, I mean, it's two consoles, right? It's a Switch OLED and the analog pocket.
And I just had that TV stand for $145. So my math is easy. Those really, really, really fancy $17 speakers and a TV stand comes to a total hardware subtotal of $162.
Yes, and my PC hardware and other gaming hardware with these handhelds comes to a fairly high $3,270. So I think I win that one on the spending side.
Yeah, I think you win. Previously,
and by winning, that might be a loss. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know that comparisons year over year are even like worth it. Basically my previous year, again, the criteria on what we're including and not have changed. So I had been kind of purchasing a console per year, right? I had the PlayStation 5 in 2021. I had the Steam Deck in 2022. And this year I didn't really buy anything. You were close or similar to that trend, but you bought the PS5 in 2020 instead of 2021. So you're still kind of rocking like 1 to 2 console hardware purchases per year.
Yes. Yeah. Last year I had about $1,000 between that PS5 SSD that I bought that you gave me a hard time about and the Steam Deck. That was about $1,000 total. And then previously I had, a couple $100 here and there, and then PS5, like we said before. So yeah, it varies. This is by far, obviously, the highest that I've ever been, but I am really hoping that 2024 is going to bring a very low number in the hardware kind of column, except for a Switch 2.
Except for a Switch 2. Well, who knows? Maybe you won't get one, and then it'll be $0.
If the Switch 2 doesn't come, then it will probably be basically $0.
Okay, for those of you keeping track at home, grand total on this hobby, gaming total for me for 2023 was in my opinion, very reasonable $1,113.
That is amazing compared to previous years.
Yeah, I had been over $2,000 last year. Just kind of, Steam Deck and higher on the games and everything. Like I spent a lot of money elsewhere in 2023. I moved, kind of other things going on in my life. And I would say if you were to look generally at my bank account, didn't spend less overall. But I did spend less on gaming in 2023. And that was just, there were other things kind of demanding my time. There were other priorities that I had this year. Just didn't have, I've had a lot of time for gaming in the last month, and I've been very thankful for that. But you go back and listen to the episodes throughout the year, and I will say, oh my gosh, I'm so busy. I haven't been really playing anything. And that really reflected here in the amount that I've spent this year, which I don't see as a huge plus, right? It's something that I love. It's a hobby and a pastime that I really, really enjoy. So much so that you and I talk about it every other week. So while, only spending $1,100 on gaming is nice, that reflects the amount of time that I was able to invest in something that I really love this year. So, there's two sides to that.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. And I am really glad that you have had a chance to play some games in the last month or so. It's been really nice to get to play together again, right? Because for a while it was kind of like, oh, well, what'd you play? Oh, yeah, I played this. Oh, what'd you play? Oh, yeah, I played this other thing that's not the same, right? And we've been playing a little bit more together lately, and that's been pretty fun. So I'm glad that you're kind of getting some time for that, and who knows what 2024 is going to bring. But my total coming into 2023 is about 4 times as much as yours. So I'm around the $4,400 mark, again, because of the very high hardware costs this year. I'm just going to remind myself and everyone, just to make me feel better, that my game spending total was only $1,100 between PC and console, which is way down, $200 down from previous years, and about on average, right? About on par. So if you take all the hardware stuff out of it, my stuff wasn't too high, but I did have a lot of, as you said, investments this year in kind of my hardware setup and hardware options. We say it every year, and I think it's usually Jason that kicks it off. But this year, I feel in the unique position in the kind of higher end of the seesaw here of the spending to say that we understand that it is absolutely a privilege to be able to afford and buy the things that we want to do this hobby that we like to do. And it's certainly discretionary spending, and it's very much something that is within our means, right? It's something that we're doing as for fun. It's something that we are not going crazy about. It's not something that we're doing conspicuous consumption here, right? It's something that we really enjoy, and it's our fun, right? It's our pastime. So we understand that this is not necessarily typical, and we don't want to say like, oh yeah, everybody compare yourself to us. But it's something that, like we said at the top of the show, right? It's informative for us. It keeps us gives us some perspective. It kind of makes sure that it's helped a lot, right? If I look at the spending on games themselves, as long as we've been doing this, it's been very clarifying in terms of spending money where I spend time. And this exercise is really healthy for that.
I would hope that people don't try to compare these numbers. Chris and I compare to each other because we're two hosts on a podcast, right? It's kind of part of the the job here. But I would hope that people don't compare what they've spent to what we spend, right? We're different. Like you probably don't have a podcast about gaming. It may or may not be your largest pastime and your biggest hobby. But I would encourage people to do this kind of exercise, to go back and review. Maybe it's not on gaming. Maybe it's whatever your primary hobby is, or whatever you really consider to be the thing that you spend most of your money on. Because it's super enlightening. It's super helpful. It's just, you see things that you don't see in the moment. And that is why Chris and I love to come back to this and do this every single year, and why it has become such an easy annual tradition for us to do. Chris, any closing comments on what we found?
I think we've said it a couple times, I think, during the episode here, but I will say that for all of the kind of review and the look back, and the fact that I by far outspent, for the pair of us this time, I absolutely feel nothing is regretful, right? Nothing is like, oh man, I shouldn't have done that. Everything is very much it was worth it, right? It was fun. I finished. I did the math. Maybe we'll have to do this another year. I don't think we're prepared this year to do it, but I did the math earlier, and I finished. I want to say like 8 games this year, something like that. Like rolled credits on like 8 different games. So I feel good, right? This is a nice look back on, hey, these are all the things that I spent money and time, more importantly, time on this year.
Yeah, I will echo. Really, no regrets. I don't know that I finished a whole lot this year, but I certainly experienced a lot of things. And I think that for the experiences that I had this year, I came in at a price that seems reasonable for me. I hope, honestly, like bluntly, to have more time and to spend more on gaming next year. Just because, like I said, it is a reflection of how much time I had to put into this. So, I guess my only regret here, it's in a weird way, my only regret is it's too low, right? I love, kind of getting to spend time playing games and experiencing those stories and getting to play with other people. And, like you said, like getting to play with you and other people that we've been playing with together has been great. So I hope to get to do more of that next year, and kind of dedicate more time to that. I know that we have inspired at least one person to do this exercise themselves. I would love to hear from more people. If you, even if you just add up a little bit, you don't have to tell us the number. You don't have to share the number. Just tell us what you thought, or what you think, or what you reviewed, and what your kind of reflection is on your own spending or your own hobby or anything like that. We would love to hear from you or anyone else doing this in our Discord, which you can get to at discord.pnapodcast.com.
If you want to read our show notes or find our older episodes, more importantly for this episode, we will have links in the show notes to the 3 previous times that we have done this. We'll have those at our website, which is pnapodcast.com. That's P, the letter N, the letter A, podcast.com.
If you're enjoying the show, if you've been listening to us for, any amount of time, or especially if this is not your first annual spending recap with us, we would love if you could just, shout this out. Tell some other people about it.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you next time. So, Jason, are we going to see a gaming PC buy in 2024 on the Jason side of the chart next year?
Almost certainly. It is amazing that it wasn't there this year. I have been so close to buying a PC so many times in the last 4 months. But I mean, like I've been saying during the show, I really didn't have a whole lot of time to play PC games until the last couple of weeks. So I just never kind of pulled the trigger on it. I never did it. And I really, really want a new PC. I can, if this one's, the one I'm using is not dragging, it's not bad. It's still perfectly, reasonable and serviceable. And as I'm doing more and more comparisons about the stuff out there, the cost that it would take to upgrade what I already have is big. It would not be a cheap upgrade. So the PC I have is still very good. I'm running a 2070 Super. I've got the 3900, the AMD 3900. That stuff's old, but it's not bad. And I would essentially need to go to a 3070 or higher, and a pretty sizable CPU, to see any noticeable upgrade. So we're talking minimum like at least $2,000, $2,500.
Yeah. You've sent me a couple of like, I don't know, PC Part Picker or like other like pre-builts or whatever, and said like, hey, look at this system that I'm kind of looking at. And, I like to, it's kind of a hobby of mine to look at PC rigs, right, and kind of look at the specs of them, not to do the aesthetics of it. I'm not like doing RGB lights all over the place, but like I like to see components and like what the current state of the art is. And yeah, I mean, it takes a lot to kind of get appreciably over the systems that we built. I don't know, I guess that would have been almost 4 or 5 years ago now at this point, other than the GPU. And I think we both brought GPUs to those builds, and obviously we just finished talking about me replacing mine with a 4090, but it's a good computer, right? I mean, I have similar leanings. I would love a new CPU, but that means a new motherboard, and that means new RAM, and that's a commitment. So we'll see what happens in 2024, but nothing for me on that front.
Really?
Yeah. After this look back, I think I'm good.
I couldn't resist. No, you're going to see something from me. Where I actually end up on the whole thing, like I'm finding that the 2070 Super is still a pretty decent card. And I said during the show that I'm not a huge fan of kind of off-cycle upgrades. But prior to the 4090, you were on a 1070. Is that what it was?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, you were on you were definitely chugging on that graphics card. I'm not like, I think what really is holding me back in a lot of the games I play is the CPU. And I know you and I have the same CPU, but I maybe play some less optimized games, Guild Wars 2 and Warframe, and even World of Warcraft at times. You're just like, I'm sitting here in Valdrakken and my frames is like 12 per second. And I know yours is pretty close to that. So it's not the graphics card.
It's not the GPU. And that's the one thing that would make me upgrade, is if I could figure out if it would matter. Like if it would really matter for performance in WoW specifically. But I don't think it would. I think it's much more a function of the add-ons that I have, and like weak orders and like other setup things.
I think you're right. But the CPUs have come a long way since we bought ours. The single core clock speeds are higher. They're not extraordinary, but they are higher. And overall, they're doing a much better job, particularly Intel, at the performance versus efficiency core stuff. So like, running all your background stuff on efficiency, so you have all of the headroom to run it all on performance cores. Like, they're doing a really good job of that, and from what I've heard, it is really helping. I would like to experience that firsthand before I recommend it, but at least from what I'm hearing at the the higher end of the Intel market, and then particularly some of the 3DX AMD cards chips. Also really, really good performance in areas that is CPU heavy. So, I don't know. I don't think it's not causing me to not be able to kill raid bosses in World of Warcraft, but it is slightly annoying in Valdrakken. So it's just one of those things that we'll see. I really kind of want to upgrade next year. It's not a requirement. I will probably pull the trigger on something by the end of the year.
Well, I will eagerly await next year's spending review episode to see how that turned out.